Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to 2021 Customer Experience Requirements Beyond CDP and MDM. Before we get into today's session, I'll first introduce myself. I'm Chaz Kilt. I'm Senior Director of Industry Solutions Marketing at Reltio, and I'll be your moderator for today's panel discussion. I do have to share one housekeeping item, which is that this session is being recorded. If you would choose not to be recorded, please drop off now. So let's start with some context for today's panel discussion. I really think about the situation that we're in, this environment, clearly as like one that we haven't seen in modern world history. It's definitely a time of challenge and change. We've got a public health, an economic, and a social crisis. But still, life goes on, albeit with some major changes in the way that consumers are behaving, and those are both B2C and B2B consumers, as well as the way that businesses are responding. Business models are changing. We see everything from contactless commerce, which is probably one of the bigger outcomes of COVID, and curbside delivery. We're seeing an increase in services. And we're also seeing something that we're going to focus on a lot today, which is competing on customer experience. And we'll talk a little bit with our experts about how you can create a relationship, foster a relationship with your customers when they are socially distanced. The other couple of points to make here is that we were seeing a very dramatic increase in e-commerce even before COVID struck. In 2019, total online retail sales hit 16% in 2019. So that was huge. That was up 14.4% from the preceding year. And that was the biggest annual percentage jump that we had seen since the year 2000. That is doing nothing but accelerating at this point in time. The other point to be made here is that if you think about it, it really provides an opportunity for enterprises that are prepared to take advantage of this increase in digital commerce. And there are two areas that we'll talk about today that are required: digital transformation and how you manage your customer data. The problem here is that digital transformation is not keeping pace with the acceleration of digital commerce. And clearly that is a challenge. So with that said, against this macroeconomic picture, let's look at the CX requirements, the customer experience requirements, and the future of the technologies for managing customer data with three experts who come at the topic from three different roles within the industry. Our first guest is Omer Iqbal. Omer is Senior Vice President of Global Architecture and Platforms within the Digital Center of Excellence at the Shiseido Group. And Shiseido is a multinational luxury beauty company. They operate in about 120 countries and regions around the world. Very old company. They were founded in 1872 in Tokyo. So they've been around for quite a long time. Omer has more than 17 years of experience managing and implementing digital marketing and back-end operation solutions. He has run successful programs with brands. In addition to Shiseido, he's worked with Bare Minerals, Lancome, Kiehl's, Urban Decay, YSL Beauty, Giorgio Armani, and one of my favorites, Godiva. So welcome, Omer. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks.
Our second panelist is Noel Yuhana, and Noel is the VP and Principal Analyst at Forrester. Noel covers a wide range of topics, as we were chatting about in the Ready Room before today's webinar. He covers data management very broadly, enterprise architecture, and cloud and hybrid deployments. Importantly, for today's conversation, Noel also helps organizations with their customer data platform and MDM strategies. And lastly, we've got my colleague, Raman Chen, and Raman is the Chief Product Officer at Reltio. In that role, he's responsible for product management and strategy. He's been with the company for 6 years, and he actually started both the marketing functions and the product management function within the company. He has more than 30 years of experience running marketing and product management teams, albeit, as you can see, he does not look like he's got 30 years of experience. He's aged well. So, beyond that, he's worked for startups up to Fortune 500 companies, and he is an MDM and customer experience veteran. Certainly one of the big accomplishments in his career as head of product management at a company called Cyperion is that he was part of the team that brought the first master data management platform to market in 2005. So gentlemen, thank you all for joining me today.
Thanks, Chad.
Great. So let's start off with an easy question. One word answer, true or false? You cannot deliver a mutually beneficial customer experience without digital transformation and a solid customer foundation. So Omer, true or false?
True.
True. Noel?
True.
True. Rahman?
Absolutely 100% true.
Awesome. I'm glad. It's good when a plan comes together. I thought there would be agreement on that. So let's dig into the two underpinnings of customer experience. With that said, digital transformation and customer data management. And I thought it'd be a good place to start by defining what digital transformation means to each of you. I think it's one of those terms like cloud was in the early days that is defined sometimes incorrectly, and many times by an individual's personal point of view and experience. But let's see what you have to say. Omer, obviously you're coming at it from the point of view as a practitioner, as the consumer of technologies that companies like Reltio sell, and as someone who is of interest and may engage with analysts like Noel who are looking at the marketplace. So you lead the Digital Center of Excellence for Shiseido Group. Tell us a little bit about the mission of the Digital COE and how you define digital transformation.
Sure. Thanks, Chad, for the intro as well. So really, the mission of the DCOE, or the Digital Center of Excellence, we started about 4 years ago, was to standardize digital technologies across all our prestige brands. And the reason why I mentioned prestige is because we haven't moved into the consumer product brands yet, because the data ownership is a little bit tricky there. It's mostly with the retailers, your drugstores and everything. So we started with the prestige brands, and the idea was not only to provide the tools, but also the education and manage the change management as well of those digital platforms and digital education across the organization. That's really where the DCOE stemmed from. That was we divided up into several work streams, and one of them was consumer data and how do we market to them. And that's where really Reltio and other platforms came into play for us. The mission really is to make Shiseido the most digitally fit company in the beauty space today.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Noel, how does Forrester define digital transformation?
Yeah, I mean, and obviously we have a lot of customers asking us about digital transformation. The way we define digital transformation is the harnessing of this digital assets and the ecosystems, continually improving the customer experiences and outcomes, right? It also increases the operational agility as part of the digital transformation. Now, what's interesting is that what are you trying to achieve with digital transformation? One of the surveys we did recently was that the number one thing which people are really talking about when they talk about digital transformation is to provide a better customer service and customer experience at about 61%. So when they talk about digital experience, like what are they referring to, right? But also increasing the efficiencies and productivity is a very high up the chain there in terms of digital transformation. Now, digital transformation can be divided into 4 elements. One is the digital experience, and the second one being digital operations, the third one being digital innovation, and the fourth one is digital ecosystem. So if you look at it from digital experiences, it's all about delivering better customer experiences in that category, ensuring you are able to drive new products and new services, having omni-channel experiences, and also personalization being done right. right? And so that's digital experience. That's the first category within digital transformation. The second one is this whole digital operations, right? And modernization of the platforms is critical. Without modernization of those platforms, legacy platforms are not able to keep up in this era of digitization, right? So you need to actually have automation. You need to actually enable cloud. You need to enable AI, machine learning. You obviously have to improve employee experience along with re-engineering operations as well as part of the whole digital operation. The third element is digital innovation, right? Innovation is also important, right? I mean, you can't just leave it on the side, actually, especially as we see more advanced companies focusing on digital innovation. So this is actually the intersection of experiences and operation. And this is all about innovation at the CEO level, providing a better transformation for the business itself, and also transformation to actually measure, which can be measured for the environment. And finally is the digital ecosystem, which is all about the platforms and partnerships, the stronger alliances which you may have, the co-innovation and the partnerships which is enabled, and the marketplaces you enable as well, right? So all of these four components together drives a digital transformation success,
Yeah, interesting. The digital ecosystem is not something that is as commonly thought about or spoken about. Would you be able to provide a little bit of color, maybe an example, or share some viewpoint on what the trends are with respect to the digital ecosystem?
Leveraging marketplaces as a channel, I think, is very critical. I mean, if you look at cloud, right? I mean, cloud providers have marketplaces in their own mix where they have software, right? Like Google and Amazon and Microsoft. So they have these marketplaces where you can buy all these different services to really provide that end-to-end framework, right? So they have these digital assets which they are trying to deliver. So from that perspective, from this software company like Google and Microsoft, they are enabling this whole, a new channel altogether to interact with their customers, whether it's B2B or B2C environments, right? And that actually is a very interesting kind of model. We're going to see a lot of marketplaces being emerged for different industries, whether it's in the retail sector, whether it's in the healthcare sector, because that really engages and expands the whole horizon of digital transformation. It's not just about one person to another person or one company to another company. It's a whole ecosystem of marketplaces that have to evolve, and that really changes to the next level, right? And this is what we are seeing already in the cloud, as I mentioned. But now we're going to start to see, starting in the coming years, more industries are also taking it on. So.
Very good. Thank you. So Raman, you talk with a lot of companies across a variety of industries that have as their goal digital transformation. When they approach Reltio, that's what they want our help with. Have you observed any common themes among companies in the disparate industries that your company, that Reltio serves, and that you're talking with?
Yeah, Chaz. I've noticed that while people have it as a goal, there's a lot of confusion about how to get started. And vendors in the marketplace really are glomming onto digital transformation as the buzzword du jour, much like big data was in years gone by. And there's so many different options, technologies and foundations, and Noel helps greatly with sort out the morass that's out there. And it's important work that Noel does, but it's very confusing to people. So often when we first get engaged, they have a sense, they have a vision for where they want to go, as Noel has described, but they really don't know whether they should pick MDM, whether they should pick CDP, whether they should just go with a data warehouse and put that in the cloud. I think the critical thing is that some people are stuck because they feel it's such a big endeavor. It's going to require so much effort, time, and money, and they've got to get everybody coordinated before they can even begin to execute. But the reality is that while you have to be true to your vision and strategy, you've got to stay agile, right? And you have to adapt. And I think that'll be a recurring theme in sort of my feedback. The only thing that's constant is change. It's the old saying, right? businesses continue to evolve. The other thing is that technology is evolving at such a breathtaking scale. I mean, AWS, Google, Microsoft, the mega cloud vendors are cranking out new capabilities. There's a new open source capability that's being productized by some innovative startup to make money out of it. It's very, very confusing. And the landmines, I think, that we are seeing is that for most companies, they don't want to put their investments into a data management platform that's locked in, because that means they're locked in. And also, they don't want the traditional on-premise, as Neil pointed out. Cloud is table stakes. But it's not just hosted cloud. It's about cloud that can continuously have disruption-free upgrades. Salesforce showed us the way almost 15, 20 years ago now, that you can wake up the next morning and have new functionality without the heavyweight upgrade and the disruption to your business. So it's a 24/7 business in many cases for true customer experience. And then finally, I think to go back to that point of being paralyzed and not being able to kind of get started, people want quick wins to continue the investment in the business value, to demonstrate to the confidence to the business teams that are relying on the technologies and the platforms, and those needs have to be met and met quickly.
Yeah, thanks for that perspective. And we are going to dive a little bit deeper into enabling technologies. It's going to be an important part of today's conversation. So it's great that you've introduced that subject. I am curious about one thing. As we established, you've been in the MDM and CX space for the majority of your career. I'm wondering if the interactions that you've had with partners and customers and prospects has changed your perspective on digital transformation in any way.
I think it hasn't changed my perspective. It's kind of reinforced what we started Reltio as a foundation for, the notion of real time, agility. And we're going to talk maybe a little bit more about COVID. Unfortunately, it's a topic that's out there, and we have to address it. But I think the ongoing conversations have really given me confidence that what we set out to do at Reltio has really borne to light, and that we are continuously learning as well as everybody is on this journey, and being able to add new capabilities and deliver them to our customers to help companies like Omer realize their business potential and to move with the times and the challenges that are in the economy is extremely important.
Great.
And just to add to that, sorry, Chaz, just to add to Ramon's point, it's also, the ability to not incur the technical debt that a lot of companies face. That's another beauty of this, to move forward quickly, especially for companies who already have legacy platforms that they want to change, is, without having that liability, you can move very quickly on this. So it's a very, very great space to be in today.
Yeah, thank you for that. And if you don't mind, I'd like to go back to you and ask if, Ramon had made the point that knowing where to get started and avoiding analysis paralysis is absolutely critical. And it's a lesson that he's learned being in the market for as long as he has. Could you provide any perspective either from your experience with Shiseido or elsewhere, or among your colleagues, because I know that you're a thought leader and very active in networking in the industry. Can you give us a sense of, maybe one or two starting points that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what was great about Shiseido, I started about almost 4 years ago, was that, we formed a team outside of the normal organization with no P&Ls, with no, legacy thought process about the company. DCUA was all new employees. We came in with a very specific purpose, with a budget in hand. We didn't have to go and really sell the vision too much to all the brands. That sort of keeps a lot of the large organizations from, going about the digital transformation quickly, or even implementing a tool like Reltio very quickly, because you start talking to, 10 different people who have another 10 different people to talk to. we were really the stakeholders, the decision makers, the budget holders. I think that worked really well for us. And again, it was just a matter of finding the right partners with internally and externally and moving quickly on those. We had really set timelines for ourselves because a successful center of excellence can really is supposed to deliver in a span of 2 to 4 years. That's really the idea. And then beyond that is more innovation and how to do the change management. So those are the things that I would say to be focused on. Really have a precise timeline if it's possible, centralize the budget. Otherwise, again, if you have to go for budget conversations to each brand or each business unit, it's going to be very challenging.
That's really great feedback. So if I were to sort of summarize this section, how we're defining digital transformation, a couple of key takeaways. Noel, you brought to the table the fact that digital transformation is enterprise-wide. It affects all aspects of the business. And I think, Omer, that you reflected that opinion as well, that viewpoint through your own experience as an SVP running that digital center of excellence and leveraging customer data across all aspects of the business. And then, as I said, we will talk in more detail shortly about enabling technologies, but Raman, you brought that to the table, and Omer just did a great job of supporting that and embellishing on that, which is choosing the right technologies, choosing the right starting point in the process are absolutely critical. Otherwise, you wind up standing at the edge of the sea trying to boil the ocean. So cool. Well, let's move on. Clearly, digital transformation is important based on what we've talked about. That is kind of a non sequitur. It's taken for granted. But the issue is, and I made this assertion earlier in my introduction, is that the pace of digital transformation hasn't kept pace with the increase in the demand to make that transformation happen, especially around things like e-commerce. And the slide that I've just shown, that I've got up here right now, I think is really interesting. Noel, in April of this year, Forrester published a really cool stats-rich infographic. And as you can see, the title here is Digital Transformation in 2020. It's time to catch up to the first movers. Right. So the title's a bit of a spoiler, but I was wondering if you could share, some of the quantitative insights with us from that report.
Yeah, no, I mean, so what's interesting is that there is obviously different categories of digital businesses. Some of them are actually advanced, as we call it, right? Some of them are intermediate, and there are beginners as well, right? So and what we have seen is that beginners normally are very project level driven. They are focusing only on the customer experiences. And that's what 47% based on the infographics we see here, right? So definitely it's very kind of focused on that immediate return to improve that customer experiences, but also improve actually the efficiencies as well for their business itself, right? So that they can be more productive and actually gear up for better innovation to come, right? And that's what the beginners is all about, actually, when it comes to digital beginners. From a digital intermediate, this newer level of focus is more on the business focus. And the whole idea is actually to provide a new transformation of this business outcome, right? How can you really change the business behavior or improve the notion of maybe I'm going from a store which used to sell videos on the DVDs, right? Or the CDs, going to become digital, right? And that's actually disrupting the business, where you actually provide a better framework to really improve the outcomes and improve the customer experience around there. So the focus is more broader in nature, where companies are actually changing the way they operate as a whole, right? And that's a massive thing. And that's accounts to about 35% of the people today focusing on that. And then we got these 14%, which is highly advanced, actually, which has been thinking differently, right? They are thinking in a sense that how can really improve the whole market itself, right? like we have seen Uber doing it for this market on this whole services industry, right, for the cars, right? So that's kind of the whole disruption of this market. So these are different categories of there. Now, what's interesting is based on the research we have done is that what's the payoff of this, right? Basically, what we've seen is that the companies which are more digitally advanced are likely to grow faster than the ones which are not, right? So we've seen at least 10% or more revenue growth of those who are in the advanced category versus those being intermediate and beginners, right? So that's a very interesting stats out that comes out. That obviously you need to be on that category of the high end of that advanced, which actually really takes away and really provides you that value from a business operation, but also addressing to these needs which people really need, driving better customer experience, right? It's not about, okay, I'm going to take this experience and digitize it, but really taking it to the next level, right? I mean, we have obviously mirrors, right? The advanced mirrors where you can actually try out all these dresses without actually having to go to the store, right? Think about those transformation of businesses that can be done, right? It's amazing. So we've seen different categories of these, and obviously a lot of people are moving towards that advanced category, which I think is very, very good, I guess, yeah. So.
Yeah. One thing I picked up on in the report, Noel, is there's a quote that I'm reading from the percentage of companies that are digitally advanced has hardly budged. Now, to put this report on a timeline, it was published in April. Obviously, the research had been done. A lot of it had been done in 2019. The pandemic was new to us. I'm curious to know if you've seen any acceleration since COVID really struck in Q1. Have you taken more inquiries? Are you providing more consulting services? What are you observing in terms of the pace of acceleration of digital transformation?
So, what's interesting is we have done this year a survey where we asked just a couple of months ago, during this pandemic, we have asked companies, what has been the scope of your digital transformation today versus last year, right? And this year, what we're seeing is that the company-wide enterprise focus has declined compared to last year. It's interesting. Only 50% of these companies today are focusing on an enterprise-wide digital transformation strategy versus 65% last year. So we have gone down from 65% to 50% in this company-wide digital transformation. So where has the focus been? Well, it's been on the business units. It's been very specific products and services. Why? Well, you want to reap the benefits of these right away, right? You can't wait on this pandemic that, hey, I'm going to do a company-wide transformation. Well, that'll take you a couple of years to get you there. But what if I can do a transformation of these products and services in a few months? And that's the turnaround you want to do. So what we're seeing, interestingly, is that, about 39% today are focusing on this business unit, services oriented on function approach of these digital transformation versus last year, I think it was like 25% or 26%. So we have seen a big thing on a jump here. And I think the whole reason is that they want a quick turnaround of these results from these scenarios, what they are having today, because there's a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of opportunities out there. And we start to do a company-wide thing. Well, it will take a while, but it may get some results even broader, but then we want a quick return in months, not years, right?
Right. Yeah, that makes complete sense, because if we go back to the stat from the U.S. Department of Commerce, there was just, 16.4% of just retail sales was digital, was online transactions. And, based on the research that I've done, it's very similar across many other industries. So there is a lot of opportunity there if you're prepared. And it also makes perfect sense, if I heard you correctly, that the focus is on those areas that affect customers the most. The topic of today's conversation, the customer experience, and bringing new solutions to market, new services, seems to be really critical. That's the lifeblood. That's where the revenue is generated. Is that the way you see it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not only getting the areas, identifying areas where they can really get the quick benefits, from a market penetration perspective and improving customer experiences perspective, right? And that's very important. So they expand doing a lot of new product rollouts and new services around those lines where they're seeing the growth and traction out there. That's one thing. But also, trying to come up with these newer areas of growth in the areas where there's demand happening, right? So I think product services specific, specific services which people are embarking on today have to obviously do with what they are seeing out there in the industry, right? Whether it's for marketing, for consumer goods or other type of goods as well, right? So, excuse me.
Yeah, that's right. Omer, how does that compare with what your experience has been at Shiseido since the beginning of the year?
It's given rise to this stay-at-home economy, this whole COVID situation. So we have to adapt. We had to really look at our workforce. Shiseido is a people-first company, so everybody was very careful about the exposure that our employees were getting, whether it's somebody in a Sephora, Ulta, in a mall, or in one of our own stores. So we had to adapt very quickly by allowing BAs to access data that they didn't have access to before, by allowing BAs to conduct live stream sessions. It's very interesting. I learned over the past couple of months that in China, the live streams that they do, the BAs, go anywhere from 10 to 15 hours a day. You have constantly folks watching, and there's data being generated on, how many people are liking what part of your live stream. So there's a lot that's changing, and making sure that, the BAs are also very happy to educate themselves on these digital tools, which they wouldn't have been maybe a year ago, where they have a certain stream of customers coming in to the store. Now they're relying on all these digital tools that we're offering, where they can schedule one-on-ones, or group live streams with their consumers. So there's definitely been a drastic change. We have to relook at how we fulfill our orders, how do we serve our consumers, how do we reach our consumers. So definitely seeing this just generally across the beauty space and also in apparel.
Yeah, so this sounds like it's an omni-channel approach that you've taken, with the beauty advisors right on the front lines, interacting in physical locations where it's safe and with the proper safety measures in a store, but also very much increased traffic on your digital channel.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to drill down into that in the next section as well, because I'm very eager to hear more about some of the experiences that you're bringing to your customers. Ramon, what's your take on what you've heard from Noel and from Omer? Does any of this surprise you? Is there another dimension to consider?
No, not at all. I think to echo Noel's comments and Omer's experiences, we, as the COVID hit, saw a significant uptick in the consumption, because being a multi-tenant SaaS platform, we see spikes in not just the data under management and increased projects being launched, but real-time API operational usage of the customer data and multi-domain data that's stored in our platform. I'll just give you a few examples. We have 8 out of the 10 top global farmers as Reltio customers, and as you might imagine, their needs in terms of trying to come up with a vaccine and to continuously interact with the physicians that they traditionally would send their sales reps to meet face to face, all of that went out the window. So Reltio's platform had this massive valuable data store of all of the information about the physicians, which ones are most appropriate, and experts in particular fields. And so we immediately saw spikes in usage. And without them even having to ask us, we accommodated that spike in usage. It was almost like the Black Friday for the pharma industry. All of a sudden you saw all of this increased real-time activity. And then you mentioned curbside delivery at the beginning, Chaz. So we have a major fast food franchise that is our customer, and they fully integrate with Reltio into their loyalty rewards program. So when you order food, sandwiches, and so forth on their system, it's one single persona, preferences, and ability to serve. So they were able to pivot and also saw a spike in terms of digital loyalty enrollments, with everybody now ordering through mobile apps and requesting preferences for contactless delivery. And then, of course, being at the sort of hub of retail, many of our customers rely on us for that information as they had to shutter their stores. So luxury goods retailers were basically conducting, much like OMA does in terms of beauty advisors, consults, and doing consults about clothing and the kinds of things that the customers prefer. And then finally, this is one that sort of should come to no surprise to anybody, because people are moving out of the areas, there's an increase in demand in mortgages, right, and real estate. And also with interest rates dropping, it was the perfect storm for one of the major or the largest lender of mortgages in the world, uses Reltio for their sort of evaluation process and performance for mortgage and refinancing process. So we've definitely seen massive uptick in scale. But then one final point is people are also now, having defined the customer data as the foundation, are now looking across the other domains. So now how do I better improve the customer experience by working on my back end and back office components, such as my interactions with my supply chain and my suppliers, my vendors, my partners. Noel discussed, this digital market exchange, which is an extremely exciting concept, and Reltio's got the technology for that. But within the ecosystem of companies that deal with partners and transact with partners, there's an increased interest in sharing data confidentially and securely within that framework as well.
Absolutely. You trigger another good thought, Raman. Two things really. Number one, bringing up mortgages is a very interesting point, because certainly the positive of lower rates doesn't outweigh what's happening, the disruption that we've seen globally. But on the other hand, there are some aspects to what's happening that have some benefits. And being responsive, having the ability to provide real-time data, to personalize interactions, which are 2 points that Noel and Omer had brought up, are absolutely critical. And the other thing you got me thinking about, Raman, is you use the example of our customer who is a multinational sandwich franchisor. And you talked about the apps, and we're very much in an app-driven economy. And it seems to me that real-time data is absolutely core. It's foundational, as you say, to that app-driven economy. And in large part because it has to be the right information at any point of engagement, to be omni-channel, to really personalize those experiences. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I will point to Noel's excellent research, as always, around sort of the Nowtech report on MDM, which we'll talk about a little bit in a minute, that talks about the ability to build on top of this excellent master data foundation that's been pulled together. Low code, no code, as Noel points out, very key to adding value and rapidly standing up experiences, tapping into the real-time nature of the data.
Cool. This sets us up for a bit of a transition here, which is to talk about how business models have changed in this situation. We've talked about the importance of digital transformation, an app-driven economy, the need for real-time data to support personalization, and to do that at scale, which is what you were really focusing in on, Raman, the ability to scale as needed for spikes in demand. So I've got a question, first of all, for you, Omer. I'd like to understand, based on your experience working for a lot of prestige brands and knowing the retail and CPG industries really well, what has Shiseido done to adapt to this social distance economy, and what parts of your business have been shaped by digital transformation the most?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of what shaped the business is really, like I mentioned earlier, is enabling employees like the beauty associates to have information available to them that they previously did not have, which actually opens up a lot, because you have to change the way you're marketing to folks, because now a BA is able to see what someone is doing online versus previously their whole mindset was around what's in the store, what samples do I have. Now they have the concept of using an endless aisle. Even if they don't have something in store or with them, they're able to leverage the online stock or inventory from another store. So all of those things that were very slow for the beauty or the prestige industry has taken up speed because they want to provide all of this, not just to their employees, but a better customer experience for their consumers across the globe. The other interesting thing that's come up is shipping options and deliverability, because we had to adapt to that. We had to not just us, but I think generally in this space, everybody has had to allow people to get stuff shipped that they would normally go into a store, pick up a sample that works for them. But now we have to start the concept of smart sampling as well, based on your shopping experience or the information we have on you. The BA has to decide what's the most appropriate product for you. And when they can't make that decision, we need to have the tools to make the decision for them. Hey, Chaz has been buying this product, and whether it's a replacement product or something that is in addition to that, these are things that the companies relying on technology more and more. Whereas previously it was more about what the relationship of the BA is with the consumer. Now it's also technology is playing a big role in that.
Gotcha. Well, it's clear what opportunities you're trying to capitalize on. Would you be willing to share what challenges you're trying to solve for?
Yeah, absolutely. So challenges, again, are one, we have to adopt very quickly to the fulfillment needs, right? That's been a challenge. I think supply chain is a big challenge for all industries, really, especially when you have, international brands. We have, Japanese brands, we have French brands. So there's product coming in from everywhere. So how to mitigate, how to do demand planning in a better way. All of these things are something that we're trying to resolve. And again, a lot of these processes were not optimized or digitalized. So we're now focusing not just on the front end and the CX, but also on the back end tools to meet some of those challenges. The other thing is, how do we set the right expectation with the customer, and how do we set the right tone within our company to match those expectations with the customer? And again, it all comes back to the data. You as a consumer, what are you most comfortable with? Are you still going out shopping? Are you someone who's open to using virtual try-ons? Because that's another investment that a lot of beauty companies are making, where you can go into a store without talking to anyone. You can really sample all the products without touching anything either. Because if you think about it, all those sample products like a sample shade, that's all gone now, just because you have to stay clean. So everything has become virtual. There's a lot of virtual try-ons that are out there, and Shiseido is focused on that as well.
Very cool stuff. So responsive data management, being flexible and being able to quickly deliver reliable data about your customers seems like it's absolutely critical at this stage.
Yep.
Cool. Great. So, let's take a look at enabling technologies now. I know that, we've got about another 15 minutes or so left, and I do want to leave time for questions from the audience. But, let me start off with you, Noel, and I'll begin with this observation that historically enterprises have used and are using a variety of different technologies to manage customer data. And they include things that you're very familiar with, like CDPs, customer data platforms, master data management products, marketing automation, even e-commerce platforms like Shopify. So which of these technologies do you think are working best, and which are falling short, and what's on the near-term horizon in terms of advances?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Definitely we see, the customer data platform, obviously there's a lot of talks about that. There's a lot of traction going on with the CDP, but then there's also MDM, which has been around for many, many decades, I guess, right? And I believe, as you know, MDM is the core to customer data, right? That's the whole essence about MDM, right? It's providing you this real-time, trusted, consistent data which you need for your applications, your insights, your analytics, right? And that's the core. And I think what we've seen is that CDPs have obviously been leveraged MDM as well, right? So CDP does leverage MDM to provide you that framework that's needed to get consistent customer data. And MDM has evolved over the last few years, right? I mean, it's not just about master data, but there's also about data quality, data governance, right? It's leveraged in a consistent manner, right? So MDM obviously has now a broader portfolio of things, which is important, I guess, for all these applications and interactions you're trying to do. But CDP also has this very value that, well, it's out of the box, it's got end-to-end solution, it's well defined. You don't have to need as much of customization. It helps you a lot. We see CDP having its own place, especially for mid-sized companies or smaller companies, especially when you don't really have a team of engineers working with you. You want to get out of the box to have the flexibility and agility for demanding some of these things. But then CDP obviously sometimes falls short because you actually, what about customization I want to do? What about some of the complex MDM, customer data experience I want to deploy? And that becomes a bit more challenging, because these solutions have been very pre-configured, predefined in those aspects. So we definitely see MDM being leveraged across many different application insights, but also it leverages on CDP as well. So CDP, I think, is as the core of the customer data, right? It's critical for organizations to succeed. And without MDM, you would not be able to do a real customer experience, actually, right? Because you want consistent data. Imagine getting emails or mailers in your inbox repeatedly because you have your name spelled wrongly. And MDM takes care of that, right? Identifying the customer is very, very important, right? So it provides you a very good framework. So we definitely believe MDM is that core and of the architecture, and it's leveraged by CDP and other architectures in today's world,
Yeah, that makes sense. Appreciate that. So, Raman, we've established that you've been in the MDM market for a long time, notably at Cyperion during a period of really rapid growth in the MDM market in the early 2000s, around the time that I was getting involved a little bit later. So with, having this hindsight and being part of Reltio bringing the first cloud native MDM platform to market, how have you seen customer requirements change over the years? And some of the innovations, Noel touched on, like cloud, for example, but what other innovations have you seen, and what other use cases have emerged for MDM over the years?
Yeah, given my age, unfortunately, I'd like to say that today's MDM is not your father's MDM, but it's actually not my MDM from 15 years ago. That's how old I am. But the notion here of cloud has changed everything. So when we set out to found Reltio and Manish Sood, our CEO, his vision was not just MDM in the cloud, right? Yes, we wanted to improve the efficiency. We wanted to take the friction out of the heavyweight long-term projects that held back MDM in terms of value. In short, we wanted to democratize MDM. Right. So to Noel's point, small to medium businesses might be thinking CDP because they think, I can't do MDM. It's a bad three-letter acronym for most business users. It's bad experiences, heavyweight projects. But we wanted to go ahead and change all that. We have done so. Even the largest companies such as Omer, right? Hopefully you'll agree, that the implementation cycles are massively condensed compared with what they were with traditional MDM, and the ability to change on the fly. So those things, I think, are foundational. But to Noel's point, MDM is like oxygen and water, right? I don't even think that MDM should even be sort of a discussion point for most companies. They should have it. They should absolutely have it. Well, what's needed, as Noel's pointing out, is what's beyond MDM in terms of capabilities. Traditionally, interactions and transactions have been held outside of the context of MDM. And you were limited to a set of MDM attributes on a profile, which were kind of fixed, 20, 30, 40, 50 attributes. But today, what people need to do is continuously add more insight as they get information from social media and different sources. And the behaviors of customers, which traditionally were locked away in data warehouses, need to be uncovered and then put back into what's a growing master data profile. That's how you personalize, and that's how you better serve your customer. So that's one thing. The second thing is, and it's the name of our platform, the connected data is what's key here. You now have to link people to products, to places, but not just the social relationships between people, but the organizational hierarchies and the entire supply chain. So that level of connectivity is essential as part of it. And then one final word, because I know we're running short of time here, is I think CDPs are great, but I'd like to, being sort of 15 years in this business, let's be very careful as an industry not to go back to that siloed, solve a problem quickly, and then make it a siloed set of data that yet again needs to be brought in and harmonized for central enterprise use. The danger with CDP is it's hot, but you could get burned very, very easily because, as Noel pointed out, if you start marketing to the wrong customer, you mispersonalize to them, your data is not clean, it's not up to date, and then we'll talk about compliance in a second. All of those laws and those regulations are coming and continuously will pile on and prevent you from delivering a great customer experience.
That's a great perspective. Really appreciate that. And you did mention time. I am going to fast forward, but I do just want to quickly point out that Noel published just last week a really excellent report called the Now Tech for Master Data Management. We don't have time to dig into it now, but you can see a couple of the core takeaways that we've had here. So if you're a Forrester client, I would recommend that you get your hands on that and read that as soon as you possibly can. So let's move on to the next piece, which are win-win customer experiences. So I'd like to understand, hear some stories from the trenches about customer experiences that are of mutual benefit, both to the customer, him or herself, as well as to the organization. I think it's an opportunity to really tie together digital transformation and customer data, and take the time to look at some of the cooler developments each of you have seen or done on the customer experience front. So I'll start with Omer. How important to Shiseido is differentiating on customer experience, which is something we talk about quite a bit, and you see it in a lot of industries, financial services, for example. How do you differentiate on the basis of CX from other luxury competitors such as Estee Lauder and mass market cosmetics manufacturers like Elf or even Procter & Gamble?
So I think for us, definitely, we want to leapfrog the competition, but it's more about the relevant experience that we're providing. It's not necessarily about being different from the others. It's really being relevant. So I gave an example of a virtual try-on. I think every beauty company has that right now. I think L'Oreal acquired Modiface, which is their core business is that in order to enable it. So when Shiseido started working on this, our main thing was, are we showing you the relevant information? And that's, again, based on what we know about you. For us, the main focus is gaining as much customer knowledge about the consumers as possible, and then driving the consumer experience based on that. Whether it's a new tech or not, it's not such a big focus for us. We'd love to be the first in market for something, but our main focus is relevant and engaging consumer experience. We want to gamify a little bit, make it a little bit more fun to provide consumer data, because my personal view is I'm happy to give you the information as long as I'm getting something out of it in the form of recommendation, shorter time to get to the product that I want. Sometimes and we joke about this at the house also all the time, that I'll mention something and it appears on my Facebook feed. It's scary, but it's also cool because it's also a reminder for me, hey, I talked about this, I need to get that. So those are the kind of things, how can you do some of that? And because this happens in the store all the time. You do that impulse buy as you're walking through a store, something will catch your eye. How do we make that relevant for our consumers through, whether it's an experience on our websites, in our stores with digital monitors, or it's an experience within our app? So those are the kind of things that we're thinking about and trying to enable with our consumers. But again, none of this is possible if we don't have the right information about you as a consumer or someone who is like you.
Yeah, there's part of the customer profile that I'd like to tease out and just talk about a little bit more. And Rahman, you set us up for this. You talked about the importance of social media data. Omar, I know enough about the beauty industry to know that social media is a huge influence. Probably know more than I should about it. But how are you harnessing social and other third-party data so that you're more effective with customer engagement?
Yeah, it's absolutely one of our main channels to focus on, because we have a lot of, it's not just about the consumer, but it's also about making a consumer into an ambassador, into an influencer for our brands, right? How do we manage that? So we've invested a lot in terms of, not just the tool set, but also educating our marketing teams. We have brilliant PR folks who are always looking at doing sentiment analysis. How do we bring that data, not just for our marketing teams, but also our product teams? Because an adverse reaction to something can be, on social media, it could be, it's like wildfire, right? So, so we have to keep intact for that. We want to make sure everything, all the communication around these kind of things are managed in, timely and in the right way possible that's, appealing to the consumer. So social becomes a major part of that. So, we are always listening to our consumers through that, through not just through the social channels, but also through ratings and reviews. That's an important part for us because word of mouth seems to be the strongest advocate for our products. The trust in brands is not as strong as a trust in a colleague or a family member. So we want to make sure that we're advocating for getting those reviews and then highlighting them at the right point for the consumer.
That's fantastic. In the interest of time, I want to fast forward to a really important issue, which is privacy and consent. Sorry, I thought I had a slide for that, but let's just get to the topic. So, I'm going to start with you, Rahman. There's an elephant in the room, and that's data privacy and consent. And my thinking around this is we've talked about how really rich, really well fleshed out and accurate, complete, a good customer profile can and should be. And that can benefit the customer for sure. But if you just think about how many apps would be useless without geolocation data, for example. But there's also this ongoing, and I think legitimate scrutiny of data usage, how companies are using their customers' data, and the passage of laws such as GDPR, which has been around for several years now, of course, but also the CCPA in California. So governments are really looking at this issue of data privacy. In fact, there are ongoing hearings on Capitol Hill today. So Rahman, with that setup, do you think that there should be an ethical contract between companies and customers? And what does Reltio do to enable its customers, people like Omer and Shiseido, to secure consent from their customers to use their data, to protect their privacy, and to secure that data?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll try to be quick because I know we're running out of time here. I think absolutely. I think, in fact, most of our customers think not only of compliance, which is a necessary evil with GDPR and CCPA as examples, but they also think of compliance as a brand value, right? Because any violation of leakage of data will damage your brand. And if you are a good stewards of your customer data, if you respect opt-in and opt-out, if you manage their consent well, you really can improve your stature with your customer. And Reltio helps do that. We have several customers that use us as a consent master in addition to all the other capabilities that we have. We have the capability to support right to be forgotten. Just a very, very quick story. One of our customers, the largest used car sales company in the United States, recently was one of the first to conform to CCPA as an example. But they discovered that one of the loopholes is that if you ask for right to be forgotten and erasure, what do you do with somebody that already has a car loan? You can't just say, no, my car loan's gone, because I want to be forgotten. So the data and the linkages that Reltio pulls together for GDPR and CCPA is key to say these ones can be broken and removed, and these ones have to stay because you still owe us money. So that level of capability woven into the fabric of a data management platform is critical. The second thing is that this index, this master index that you formed by trying to bring together all of the data inside a platform like Reltio to better serve your customer, serves as the index to fulfill the compliance request. So when the right to erasure, right to be forgotten occurs, this allows you to drive and complete that loop. And then one final thing, which many are not thinking about, is you still have to store the actual audit request that the erasure was requested. So Reltio has that ability to store that request in an audit and history log, not just removing the data as if it were never there in the first place.
Great insight. And I think we've got a topic for our next panel discussion. I would love to get input from Omer and Noel, but we're out of time, just about out of time. I do want to steal from Jim Kramer and do a lightning round. I'd like to have each of you talk through very quickly your top CX 2021 recommendations. What do enterprises need to be thinking about right now as the new year approaches? Thank God.
So I'll start, I guess. My name is first. So personalization, it's old, but again, I haven't seen great examples of personalization being done today. It's definitely gotten better over the past couple of months, especially with COVID and the advent of data democratization. But so personalization is very important. The second one is building trust. So to Ramon's point earlier, also, how do we become transparent with our consumers and how we're using their data, without invoking some sort of compliance from a governing body? I think the more the businesses and brands are open about this, the more the trust they'll build, and the more comfort level people will have in giving their data.
Thank you. Noel?
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at it from a tech refresh perspective. You got to embrace the cloud. If you haven't doing that already, you got to look at AI, machine learning, and the modern MDM, which Ramon was talking about. You really have to dive into that whole solution to really, get the whole benefits of the platform. Because manually doing this is not only going to slow you down, but also leave you behind actually from the innovation that's happening. But also you got to design the strategy and products and services from outside in. You got to look at the various social media, the various channels to actually really have that outside in perspective, which is going to be critical in 2021.
Fantastic. Thank you. Ramon, bring us home.
Yeah. Well, I think there's this thing in product management as whole products. Whole customer experience is what I want people to think about, not just the information that's stored in the person profile, but all the other entities and domains that you need to deal with, like your vendor, your supplier, that will ultimately contribute and connect it all together. I think that's key. The second thing is adapt, like location. Be prepared to change because the CX needs are going to evolve, right? COVID is now, hopefully we get out of this very, very quickly in the future. But start with quick time to value and then prepare to adapt. And then finally, walk in the footsteps of others. People like Omer have blazed the trail for Shiseido. Noel has all this deep expertise. There's resources to tap into, and then just do it and expect change.
That's fantastic. My apologies to folks in the audience who had questions. I'm sorry we don't have time to get to those. However, you have my commitment that we will get back to those who have questions where we can and with the information we can. Thank you so much to our panelists today. I've really enjoyed this discussion. I hope that you three have too, and importantly, that the audience has learned something and enjoyed the conversation, and look forward to connecting with everybody again very soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.